with any agenda adjustments.
Yes, based on Dan's principal's report tonight, under deliberations, I'd like to talk a little bit about staffing,
Okay.
because our numbers continue to go up. And part of that discussion would be the memo I just passed out to you from the state regarding the funding, so that'll help us there. I also just wanted to make you aware, I've had some correspondence with the town regarding elections. We don't need to discuss it tonight, but I'd like to put it on the August agenda, because it looks like there may be a January date for the primary. So we need to look at the school calendar and figure out what we'd like to do regarding that date. Okay?
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the
Oh,
agenda
sorry,
be.
can I make some agenda adjustments?
Yep, go ahead.
So I actually would really love to talk about communications overall with the Brookline Select Board.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of work that we could do there. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I think we also need to think about budget preparation. That's coming up sooner, a lot sooner than, and capital improvement plan committee. I'd like to see how we can maybe make a motion to do a capital improvement plan committee for the CIP for the town. I think we need a liaison that might go in like our talk about communication with Brookline in general. I think I was under the impression that this was a working session rather than a meeting, so I'm surprised that we're doing like a principal's report and things like that. So I was hoping we could, talk about do more of a working session. So that's where my agenda adjustments come from, hoping more to talk about things like that.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna make a motion the agenda be adjusted with the requested adjustments around staffing, the select board discussions and CIP liaison to the town.
Yeah,
Well,
and some budget talk,
We're gonna talk the budget for the next 6 months. We can, but
I can, it's already in process, so
Yeah.
I can happily touch that under discussion as well.
okay. All those in favor? Very good.
Approval of minutes.
All right, so we are at the approval minutes. I was on travel, so I will have to abstain. The first is a non-public on May 24th, and I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
I can second that.
Second? Okay, actually, I can vote on this one. All those in favor? Okay, that's 4-0. All right, and then the next is the public hearing around the special ed expenditure trust fund on May 24th. I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
I can second that.
Okay, all those in favor? 4-0. And then the retained fund balance on May 24th. Following amendment was offered, page 1, line 34. Replace the period with a comma following curbing. Make a motion to accept as amended.
I'll second that.
Very good, all in favor? 4-0, great. All right, so now we're to the 28th, so I will abstain on these. Following amendments were offered for our Brookline School Board meeting. Page 1, line 44, correct the spelling of Riviere. Page 5, line 14, replace behaviors with behavior. Page 9, line 34, insert B between not and the. Page 10, line 4, replace reported with report. Page 10, line 23, correct the spelling of special. And page 14, line 42, replace air with R. I'll make a motion to accept as amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Oh,
Did
sorry.
you have a, yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a few adjustments. I wasn't sure how we do adjustments, if we do them live or send them out. They were.
You can say them live and they'll be on
Okay.
record then, yep.
I'd like to make a motion or make a suggestion. Can we replace chairperson with vice and chairman and vice chairman with chairperson and vice chairperson globally? I think it's just more inclusive. I don't have the lines because I'm looking at this on SharePoint, but Faye is F-A-E, not F-A-Y. Henry Kopinski is misspelled. Berkeley College is misspelled. Kathy Levitt is misspelled. Birch Hill is misspelled. Under Kathy Levitt, where it says member Mannion commented, it should be, and she appreciates that it should be added in. Under discussion for MTSS, where it says the first line, Director DeGennaro, it says anecdotally, and it should be anecdotally. I'm assuming. I think we're looking for anecdotes, although. And I think you got meeting instead of under, I think you got that. Okay, I think that was it. Thank you.
The one about Faye, it's F-A-Y-E.
Yeah, sorry.
F-A-Y-E.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Did I misspell that?
If it had to do with Faye Brown, that's.
Yes,
Okay.
F-A-Y-E, yeah, not F-A-Y. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, so Tracy, you may have to talk with Dawn after the fact. She may reach out for a couple of those. I think
Okay.
we can adjust these as amended, though. What I'd recommend, too, if you see these in the future, you're welcome to provide them in advance so they capture them a little bit better.
Sure,
And just for
yeah.
the line purposes, but
Sure.
I'm certainly comfortable approving as you just noted. Any other discussion there? Nope. Okay. So this is for the June 28th Brookline School Board meeting. I will take a motion, or I'm sorry, to accept as amended. All those in favor? Are you going to abstain right now? Okay. All those opposed? Abstentions? So it passes 3-2. Okay. So the public hearing now on June 28th, 2023. So Allison, you will also have to abstain here, it says. Is that right? I wasn't here, so I can't comment on that.
I was here.
She was
Okay.
here.
I was here. I just
Okay.
saw that. I'm like, pretty
All
sure
right.
I was present.
Very good. Then we will move on with that. So I will make a motion to accept as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? 4, and then I abstain, so passes 4-0-1. And last, the special Brookline School Board meeting on July 13th. Okay, and I was away on this as well. I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? 4-0, and I abstain. Okay, very good. So we're caught up on minutes now. All right, at this point, we're going to open up for public input at 6:09. I'm just going to read a couple notes that I always do. Each individual speaker will be allotted 3 minutes. Speakers may not relinquish a lot of time to another speaker. We'll recognize speakers on the first come, first served. Speakers shall identify themselves and their home address clearly. And we'll open it with that, if there's any. No? Okay. All right, so our public input is open at 6:09, and we'll move on to our principal's report, please.
Okay, good evening. So for our July.
I know, we'll talk about that, too.
Sorry. I was like looking for an agenda packet.
Yeah, I think we'll mention that here. Go ahead, though.
So for our July 26th principals report, we have our enrollment over the past several years. Right now, our projected enrollment for our district is 572 students. And then we gave the breakdown by grade level right now of the class sizes and the sections. So currently, every summer we get about, at RMS, we get about 20 new move-ins. Right now we're about 9, so we're keeping up there early on. Kindergarten right now is coming in at a pretty large number, 73 students. We have 5 sections of kindergarten coming in, so we're gonna have 5 sections of 14, 15 kids in a class. First grade right now has 3 sections of 20, and second grade has 5 sections of 17 and a half. Third grade is 5 sections of 17 and a half. Fourth grade is 4 sections with 19 And fifth grade is 4 sections of 21, and sixth grade is 4 sections of 22 and a half. So that's an overview of our structures right now, based off of our enrollment. And then Superintendent Corey is going to talk a little bit about our kindergarten and first grade numbers. In terms of summer building projects at RMS, we are relocating the server from our second level down to the lower level. Currently it's in our step classroom, and we're moving that out so that it can eventually become a classroom because of our enrollment. And currently we have about 19 rooms cleaned and waxed, so we're moving along well through the building. We're also making some improvements with our security cameras around the building. And that pretty much does it as of right now for building projects at RMS.
Good evening, everyone. So far, I have to give kudos to our custodial staff. They've been working really hard, even in this great weather. But they have completed, we have the gym floors completed by an outside company. But they've cleaned and waxed the floors in 15 of our rooms, including the fifth grade wing hallway. And we're right now waiting on response for the replacement of 3 of the classroom doors, the exterior doors that we're doing in phases. And I did say here, we are waiting for an estimate of when the LED light replacement for the parking lot would be completed, and actually it was completed yesterday. So they were able to schedule that in a lot sooner than we expected.
And
then
that
we
was
have-
that was for like brighter and safety, right?
Yes, so that we could see.
Awesome,
Yes,
yeah.
if you recall.
Yep.
At the evening, so we'll make sure it's really safe, particularly in the evening for after-school program and the basketball
Right.
at night. And then we have some upcoming events, obviously a school board meeting, August 23rd. And we will be having a meet and greet that I'll be sending out in another week or so to the incoming fourth grade students on August 24th. Our staff return on August 28th, but we won't go any further than that. We don't want to wish them back too soon. We do still have some staffing needs at both of the schools. At RMS, they're still looking for a full-time custodian. Right now, we're sharing one of our individuals part-time at each. 3 paraeducators and a speech pathologist. And at CSDA, we actually have that should be a .5 custodian, because now we're sharing with RMMS. And I did state here a grade 4 teacher, but we'll be discussing that. And a few paraeducators and
How many?
speech
How many?
part. I'm sorry?
You said a few, how many?
Oh, I'm sorry, 4 paraeducators. And then a part-time speech pathologist is also needed at CSTA. They are doing a lot of interviews, though, for paraeducators.
And we have 3 or 4 right now that are in the onboarding process, so.
Great. Did you have any damage from all the rain at any of the buildings? If nothing pops out, that's great.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if that's working. We did find just a small puddle in a closet off of the gym, and it's actually the same area that we had a problem with earlier in the year at the end of the winter time, when we had a heavy rain, and I think it's the driving wind. It's basically where the roof meets with the gym roof, like the side of the wall, and it's the flashing there. But we've had it checked by a roofing company, and they poured water on it and everything back in the springtime, and I had the custodians, I was out there monitoring the ladders as they were climbing up there and doing a similar thing. So we can't find anything. We think it's just a driving rain, unfortunately, but minor damage.
No, nothing major, okay.
No, nothing, small puddle, but,
A few branches in the parking lot.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, awesome.
I just have a question on
Yeah.
staffing. So it sounds like we have 3 to 4 potential after interviews, but we have 7, the need for 7. So it sounds like those will continue, obviously,
Correct.
interviews. But with the SLPs in both buildings, is there, and actually this might not be, I don't know if this would be a question for Lauren, but is there a backup plan if we can't get somebody direct to use like a booth fee or something like that? Okay,
Yeah,
so those will be
we'll
filled.
contract out if needed, need
Okay.
be. The other
Yep.
one who had started to go to speech language is RSEC.
Oh,
They
okay.
had branched out and hired 3 consultants that you can, I'll say, hire.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
That was for speech pathologist, your question was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speech pathologist, sorry.
All right, any other questions? All right, so we'll move over to update on MTSS training.
For starters, and all that on.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, the update is that basically the Brookline Summer MTSS Committee has explored multiple SEL Tier 1 curriculum options. We actually had a meeting approximately 2 weeks ago with Lauren DeGenero, and we were discussing some of the input and some of the information that we were able to find. Many of the team members still needed to get feedback from the companies themselves. They don't obviously provide all the information on their websites. I, for instance, took part in a training, a 6-hour, the company gave me a 6-hour training, so I was doing that the past few days to try to really see what some of these SEL programs look like. So we'll be discussing more of that, continuing this research through the summer into the fall. For the fall, basically, the committee has decided to use the following to increase SEL at the Tier 1 level and work through the summer to plan this along with corresponding Tier 2 SEL interventions. So basically, when we looked at, we're thinking about what we can theoretically and realistically accomplish by the end of the summer to prepare our students and staff at the beginning of the year. We're going to implement the morning meeting for all classrooms using the framework from Responsive Classroom as well as its associated resources. We've determined that many of us as administrators and teachers have already been trained thoroughly in Responsive Classroom. So we are going to pretty much help, along with other teachers, train other teachers as well. So we actually met today in a meeting, and I think we have a good grasp on how to roll this in the first week of school with the teachers. There's potential implementation of the Tiger SEL program for FY24. I know Dan mentioned, as well as myself and Lauren DeGenero, that we're bringing the Tiger program in from Plymouth State, and they're going to be doing presentations in September for both schools. They also have, because we're already having them come on board, we're going to see if for minimal dollars we can utilize other resources that they offer, which again will tie in with the MTSS committee as well as the Responsive Classroom. Each building has also created posters and visual arts charts for the classrooms and school buildings, which are presently being printed, laminated, and posted accordingly. Again, ensuring that the students and the staff all have the same language, understand the expectation, and they're just having those visuals throughout their day. The committee is also creating a rollout for teaching and modeling, building and classroom behavior expectations at each grade level. Again, that's something that we'll be training and working with the teachers on the rollout at the first few days of school, and again, guiding them so that they can provide the same training to their students. And then additional committee work moving forward will be the development of the MTSS Brookline School District Manual and process, which we're already starting to pull together. And the Tier 2 intervention inventory process from the classroom to the interventionist, really identifying what are those interventions that we need for consistency. We have a universal screener research and recommendations for behavior and a secondary tool to use for academics. Right now, we currently use the Ames Web Plus as a screener, but we need to make sure that we have a continuum to target basic reading skills as well. So there's a lot of great work going on, and some of the individuals in here right now. But the teams and the teachers are doing a great job.
Any questions at all from the board?
I had a couple questions. For sorry, I'm just scrolling back up to my notes. For Ames Web, which I believe is the screener, can parents opt out of Ames Web? So if we're using that as a screener, do we use that in the beginning of the year for all kids K through 6?
Yes, we do. Actually, currently, we're doing the screening in the beginning of the school year. We usually start at the end of September or early October at the latest. And then we also, we have a winter screening. We actually, 2 years ago, we only screened the students in the winter of those who were receiving Tier 2 services. This past year, in discussions with our teachers, they really wanted to have everybody tested. They really thought that the data that they gather from the Ames Web was really beneficial, and they were concerned about, maybe there's more gaps than we're really realizing. So this year, we actually tested everybody in the fall, winter, and again in the spring.
That's awesome. Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Is the universal screening for behavior, is that Ames Web, or is Ames Web a secondary? Because I think that, if I'm correct, I think Tracy was wondering if parents can opt out of the behavioral screening. Because the statement's not clear where it says universal screener research and recommendations for behavior and a secondary tool to use for academics after Ames Web. So I think,
Okay, I apologize, actually, yeah, the secondary screener is for the Ames Web, which is the academic, so that's what we're looking for, another secondary. As far as the universal screener, that's the one that we're looking for the behavior. And you're asking, would they be able to opt out of that? And the answer, I would assume, would be yes.
Yeah, so
Just like they can academically.
yeah, so Ames Web screens just for reading and math,
math.
and it does nothing for social emotional.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
can I, are we throwing Choose Love out? Is that like, have we made a decision as a district to stop implementing Choose Love?
I think we're finding that there's not enough consistency, and that as it gets to the older grades, particularly grades 5 and 6, there isn't enough
Yeah.
there to call it a program.
I guess, I mean, I was hoping, and of course, my hopes don't always turn into action, of trying to, like, get some sort of a presentation from the Choose Love program to really learn more about what it can do as a school board, because in a district, because I have, I follow it on social media, and I guess I just see the things that are being implemented at other schools across the state and across the region, and it seems like it's being implemented in a different way. And so I don't know if it's that it's not a good program, or if it's not a program that we're implementing to the fullest of its potential, and if there should be, I don't know, like if it's something we already have, and a lot of our staff and administrators have been trained on. I mean, I think that they still use it in Hollis, and I think that they use it to some degree of success at Hollis, in the Hollis district. So I'm just curious if that's been considered, if that should be considered.
What Hollis does is they've chosen pieces of Choose Love.
Okay.
And then they've kept concepts they've had for many years, like fill your bucket, things around that. So I think ultimately, as the committee continues to work, you're going to see us take bits and pieces from a variety of different programs that fit the needs of the Brookline K-6. I agree with Trish, as you move up into grades 5 and 6, even the Tiger program, it's kind of looking for something that's more appropriate for those grades. But there are a lot of the pieces of Choose Love that coordinate with any SEL program.
Yeah.
So to say you're throwing it out isn't necessarily correct. You're just adapting a variety of different items to work together.
There was also a struggle with the online resources with Choose Love, so that was a little frustrating for staff too. They went away for a little bit.
And there's, I can't think of the name of the organization right now. I'm too far into summer, but the one that, not controls, but talks about social emotional learning and all of that. And
The
there's,
Castle.
not Castle.
Castle standards.
Yeah, the ones that set out the, 5 to 7 standards. And so I would trust the committee to look to them, that organization, which maybe I'll come up with in a few minutes. I've been to their conferences, because really Choose Love, I have the same opinion of Choose Love. I feel like it's has some good components, but again, we talked about consistency. So it sounds like what the committee is doing is really looking at programs that have been not approved by, because we don't need approval by a national organization, but it looked at, to me, all of those crucial components to social emotional learning. And while Choose Love is a lovely program, I don't think it met those standards, from what I understood, and it wasn't an approved program, so.
We had 8 to 10 different programs.
I'm gonna come up with the
So
link.
there's about 8 to 10
Yeah.
programs that our committee.
Like
about
Second
12.
Step and, yeah.
Yeah, and then, we're looking at responsive classroom, for instance, and pairing that with Tiger.
Yeah.
And they've got what's called Turbo Time, Turbo Tiger.
Mhm.
A lot of great resources from there.
Yeah, they have a lot of data on it, and I'll come up with it and
Okay,
tell you.
yeah,
But
you can send
there's
me.
data about, like, what actually has been proven to improve outcomes. And responsive classroom across the board improves academics, I think, and there's some improvement in social emotional learning. This is from a few years ago. But in and of itself, it didn't, like, change behavior or improve, there's some things that were, but I love that, it sounds like we weren't doing responsive classroom at CSDA, and now we are gonna implement it even in grades 4 to 6 with the morning meeting.
And again, I think part of it is the consistency or lack thereof.
Right.
And again, we've had, turnover of staff, training, lack of training for some individuals. I know I have one teacher that's going for training this summer. I've been fully trained on it. That's how I taught for almost 14 years in grades 4 and 5. And I think it's a positive,
It's a good move in the
and
right
basically,
direction.
what it consists of basically is starting the day off with a meeting,
Mhm.
a morning meeting. But there's more to it. It's actually giving ownership and confidence to students and understanding that they're responsible for their actions and their words and their kindness towards others, and they hold each other responsible.
Right, exactly.
It's always looking for the positives, which is, same thing with, the Choose Love. And I'll be honest with you, for the Choose Love program, every single morning I did the announcements, or my secretaries did if I wasn't available for some reason. And I'd always talk about Choose Love every single morning, whatever the theme was for that month and that day and the activities. And sometimes I had to toss around because a lot of the activities were just too young for her at our level.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Thank you. Is the committee looking for a solid SEL, like, true program for K to 6?
We're looking at many of them, and I'll just give you an example. The details that we're going into, having phone calls and Zoom meetings with individuals. There was one program, I'm not sure whether somebody mentioned it here, Capturing Kids' Hearts.
That's specifically why I'm asking this
Okay.
question, because I've seen it successfully implemented K to 12, and it scales based on age, and it adjusts based on age, but the entire premise is the same. And so that's kind of why I was gonna actually shoot you an email
Okay.
while you were talking,
And-
since I don't know what you all are looking
Yeah,
at,
so
but
that's
to
just-
recommend
so that's
one of
just
them,
one.
yeah.
And as we're finding also is sometimes there's a huge price tags
Yes.
on all of these too.
Yes.
And others,
Would-
not as much, but might be even more beneficial.
Got it.
But if we had a price tag, I would think that there might have to be intermediary year this year and then a budgeted line for
Right.
something if we really want to
Right now,
pursue,
we
right?
have a pretty
'Cause-
solid plan in
yeah.
place with the intermediary.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
said, we're gonna do responsive classroom with David Tiger. We have some time set aside at our opening week for all of our grade levels to align with one another with how we're running a morning meeting and our themes that we're gonna have each week through Tiger. So we're looking forward to that. This is the start, and then we're gonna explore further with these others.
And I would say, if you guys really are looking for a program, you find one and the committee finds one,
Mhm.
please don't please make sure we know so that we can look to actually implement it in the future. Like what Ken said, making sure we have that as line.
Right.
And we put
You
in
know.
our budget a line, just as a placeholder for a set of money. So as we continue to explore, at least we know it's on the forefront.
Perfect, okay.
And Kelly did find, I can't get online, but it is Castle, you are right.
Castle.
I don't know why I was thinking of
Yeah.
Castle, the
Yep.
social pragmatics eval
Yep.
instead of that. So that's the organization. Thank you.
Okay, so it's encouraging, we got a process that we'll implement. Tier 1 was, I remember, the big thing, so it sounds like we're really addressing that. which
Yeah, and
is
the committees are really excited, we were happy to, the committee that met
Good.
today, about 8 or 10 of us, and they're all excited, and there's a lot of buy-in, so that's a
Oh,
good
that's
start,
great.
you know.
That's
Great.
awesome.
Do the teachers know that they're coming back to a little bit of a change with SEL in K through 6? Are they aware? Because I know this kind of picked up at the end of the school year. I'm just
I
curious.
think they heard some
Yeah.
discussion at the end of the year through the last couple of board meetings and such,
Yeah.
but at our opening week, that's when we tend to deliver
So
the
they'll
new
go on it.
initiatives.
Yeah.
But we all, sorry to interrupt, but
You're good.
we also, at our last couple of staff meetings, we did tell them, based on what we were discussing here at the school board, but also what the process was doing as far as the committee, initial committee, so they know something's coming.
Okay.
And one of the things that we spoke about today as a team is, we don't want them to feel like it's a burden on them, like one more thing to
Right.
start the new year. It's hard enough. But so we're actually having a meeting next month in a couple of weeks. The team's going to get together in person, and we're going to develop so that we will have, share things through the Google Drive, have slides available for them just to post for their morning meetings, or have charts. We will, divide and conquer and have things available for them so that we train them during the opening days for the teachers, but then here's some materials for you to utilize the first week.
Great.
And then, of course, we'll be able to follow up in their PLCs as well as other staff meetings.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My-
I-
Go ahead.
I think just to that point, not to make anything a burden, but, as we're thinking of like whole child, like whole community, in thinking about, thinking about parents too, like, are there ways that we can make sure that parents are on board and, just to kind of like, go back to make sure like parents are on board with this, right? Like the charts that we have in the school, right? And like the visuals that the students are seeing and that the teachers are seeing and like the morning meeting and like the wonderful newsletters that get sent out every week, right? Like we read them and we see what's going on, or like if the kids come home and say like, we're doing morning meeting or whatever, just like a way to make sure that teachers feel supported, that they're doing, responsive classroom, or, they're having morning meetings, or we're doing Tiger presentations, or things like that. Like, I want to make sure that if there are ways that, the community and parents and the outside can support this effort, I really would like to see that happen.
So seriously, I'm glad you brought that up because you gave me an idea. So we have posters that we've made for between both buildings, like hallway expectations, cafeteria expectations, classroom expectations. We're going to have displayed in classrooms, in the hallways, but something else we can do is add in our newsletter, because we're going to focus on one a week,
Yeah.
those first 6 weeks. So in that weekly newsletter, we can put in, next week our focus is hallway behaviors. Be sure to take a look at these before your kids come to school Monday. Just encourage them. The other thing I wanted to share too is with Tiger, we also have the option to look into, we have some teacher workshops, but there's also parent workshops too, that we can also advertise. They do a 90-minute evening session for families that would like to learn more about that. So,
That's great.
My question was similar to Tracy around homework, but it sounds like newsletter or something to that effect. I was just thinking curriculum-wise, how can we practice it too? So that sounds great. 90 minutes. I wonder if they have anything for parents maybe a little shorter than 90 minutes. But
well, we could actually split up.
all right, awesome. Is there anything else?
No, thank you for all the work on this.
No, the work sounds
Yeah,
great.
thank you to the committee.
Okay, so we are going to move into deliberations then. This is where we did have some agenda adjustments, but first I'm just going to start with our two policies, and then we'll move from there. Okay, so our first policy is IJOC volunteers. We had our second reading in June, so this would be our third reading. I'm just gonna see there are some notes in the packet if everyone sees those.
Yeah, and I don't think,
Go ahead.
so the policy committee met last Tuesday, the 18th. And I don't believe there are any additional changes to this draft that's before us today for the third reading from the last meeting.
Okay, so I'm gonna just put a quick motion on the floor to accept the third reading and adopt policy IJOC volunteers as presented. One second.
I will second that.
Okay, so now we can discuss it further.
Yeah, you said you don't think there's been any changes?
There hasn't
Because I
been.
haven't seen a copy of this since the last one that came to us, so I don't wanna vote that
Yeah.
I'm good if I have
There
something else
has
I
not.
need to
If-
reread.
If there
Okay.
were, changes, there'd be like strike-throughs. What we talked about at the policy meeting is that the language in here, that it's at the discretion, this adheres to all district policies and procedures, and the superintendent, basically is designating what training needs to be completed. If it's not something that's required by policy GBCD, which is the background investigation. So basically that would be, the designated volunteer. So we talked last time about the difference between a supervised volunteer who's not ever left alone with the children, who's doesn't have any like specific duties that require specific training. So that we would try to alternate like the suicide prevention training and the bullying training, so that everyone does one on the even years and one on the odd years, but that the superintendent's office will come up with that schedule. So that it's not in our district policy what has to be done when. And so hopefully, delineating that difference between designated volunteers and supervised volunteers and the different levels of training will make it a little bit more doable for parents to meet the requirements of training, and allow more volunteers to be able to participate.
So that would be a procedure adjustment? with
Yes.
that, And, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
I would fully support that.
Yeah. And from what we heard from Assistant Superintendent Berkskog, there's no shortage of volunteers. So, although, we might hear some squeaky wheels, people are volunteering, and our schools have lots of parents and community members stepping forward, so it's good.
Great. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Any other comments? All right, if not, all those in favor? 5-0. Okay, so that was the third reading, so that's a final then. I'm just gonna grab this real quick.
Yeah.
Take it back. Okay. All right, our next one is JICA, student dress code. We had our first reading on the 28th of June. There are also notes here. I'm just going to make a quick motion and then we can discuss. Make a motion to amend policy JICA, student dress code in its entirety by replacing it with a copy provided with the agenda, and accept the second reading as amended. We need a second.
Oh, I'll second that.
Thank you.
So as everyone knows, Brookline School District does not currently have a student dress code policy. And so at the June meeting, we brought forward a draft that had not fully been drafted. It was based on the sample board documents from the New Hampshire School Board Association. We received, as we talked about at the June 28th board meeting, we did receive feedback from community members and from the staff at, I'm not sure if it was just at CSDA or if it was at both schools. I think it was primarily from CSDA. About concerns about there being a change in the dress code, to clarify that there has been language about student dress expectations in the student and family handbook, but there has not been a policy. And so that we are hoping by coming up with a policy that it will take some of the nuance and subjectivity out of it. So at our policy meeting, we did look at several dress code policies from similar schools. And I think what you see in the packet,
I didn't get a packet.
it's in the board docs.
Right after this, we'll talk about that.
It's in board docs. So one of the things that we added, so if you can see it, it's the underlined language that is added, and it's the struck out language that has been taken out. We did add in, for district standards, the words non-transparent clothing, so that it now reads, students must wear non-transparent clothing, and that underneath that is a shirt, dress with fabric in the front, back, sides, and with straps or sleeves. Number 2, pants, skirt, leggings, shorts, etc. And number 3, shoes. And then for bullet B, students must not wear, we added accessories. So it now reads clothing or accessories, number 1, that depict hate speech, offensive, vulgar, racist language or pictures, and number 2, clothing or accessories that glorifies, encourages, or promotes the use of alcohol, drugs, or violence. We felt like that was important to add because of, earrings or scarves or necklaces or jewelry or hats, or even though the handbook does address hats. And then the other thing that we added in is in the last paragraph where it talks about students who violate this policy. The second sentence we added was the parent or guardian will be contacted regarding this matter. And then in the following sentence where it read, the students who repeatedly violate this policy may face more severe, it said punishment, we got rid of the word punishment and put in progressive discipline, including a detention, in-school suspension, or out-of-school suspension. And then the last sentence we added was that when a school staff member or school administrator discusses, we added the word potential dress code violation with a student, so that it's understood that when the issue is first addressed, it doesn't mean that there has been a violation, but that there's been a concern that there's been a violation, so that there's a process that is taken into account.
Just on a whole, was this something our staff felt like we needed, that we were missing? We've had one we have not had one for so long, that's why I'm asking the question.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
We didn't have a policy.
We didn't have a policy
Yeah.
before, but we had statements in the handbook.
Yep.
So this will basically help support what's in the, mimic
It
what's
does
in the
mimic it
handbook.
very much.
Okay.
And I think, what we, Ken, you weren't
Right.
here at the last meeting, but one of the things we talked about is that the way that it had been written in the handbook was it really left everything up to the discretion of the administrator. And we felt like that was a really unfair position to put the building administrator in. That was a lot of
Okay.
subjectivity and, easy to be put in a position where people are trying to influence your assessment of a situation. And so we felt like this would be more clear and give, students, parents, and staff and administration some guidelines that can be fallen back on.
Got it. Thanks.
Kelly, may I make a suggestion or recommendation? In your last sentence here above the legal references, where an adult should be present, at least one or two adults should be the same sex as the student, that perhaps should be gender.
Yeah, I actually thought about that myself. This came from the templated language, so
Just want to make sure
Yeah.
we're mindful of
absolutely.
our students and what they're most comfortable with in terms of their own identities. So let's, if we can just address that perhaps in some way, that would be
Yep.
great.
Any other feedback?
I mean, do you, I just wonder if this, I'm struggling a little bit with it. Like, I understand that there's a need for, some guidelines around what we wear in society, but it feels really subjective, especially when it comes to children sometimes, I guess. And, just look at like girls shorts versus boys shorts, right? Like, why are girls shorts so much shorter than boys shorts? Like, that's just, I don't know, like, why do they do that, first of all? But, like, when we say unsuitable for school wear, like, what are we even saying when we say unsuitable for school wear? Like, that feels really, I don't know.
Where do you-
In the first paragraph, the second line, or the third line. Like, are shorts unsuitable for school wear?
No, I
Like,
think, so that.
on a hot day, like.
Yeah, no, I think, so, this is the templated language from the state,
Right.
so this is, I think, addressing the state of New Hampshire, like, Board of Health guidelines. So when the dress of an individual student constitutes a health problem, is unsuitable for school wear, is a danger to any person, or causes a substantial and material disruption or substantial disturbance. So that is an overview, and then the district standards spell out, define how that is interpreted. So, like, there's nothing in
So
here.
we're defining what is unsuitable for school
Right.
wear. Okay.
So, like, and obviously there's, some discretion where it talks about, I think it's in, the second paragraph underneath the district standards. Like, obviously, if someone needs to wear a headscarf because of their religious beliefs, but they're working with a Bunsen burner and their headscarf is falling over the flame, then that particular headscarf might not be suitable for school because it, is a safety hazard. Or, so I think when you think about unsuitable for school, sort of the same conversation I've always had with my children. Can you do the activities you need to do wearing the clothes that you're wearing?
Yeah,
But
I
so-
just want to be really careful
Yeah,
with
no,
what
so
we put
we-
down on paper.
Yeah,
and
we
what we're
are
trying
definitely
to-
not determining length of shorts, finger lengths, or, finger widths of straps. It's pants, skirts, leggings, shorts, etc. People have different financial resources. Some children grow faster than others, and what might have been shorts that, were deemed an appropriate or modest length by some at the beginning of the school year might be shorter at the end of the school year. And that is not something that we want to codify in a policy.
yeah, like I said, I just, in our litigious society, I just want to be like real careful what we put down on paper.
That's why I asked what I asked, because it's,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
exactly,
I mean,
you're
I
seeing
just wanted-
exactly, but I'm glad you're in, what you said.
Yeah,
I feel
I
good about
mean,
it, but
like,
that's exactly why.
I guess like, this is the summer of my truths, so I'm just gonna say what I want to say.
Welcome.
I think from a legal perspective, this actually has components that were taken from organizations that might have problems with dress codes in general. I've read some of it before, so, I mean, we're saying it has to be, the legal components are in there, that it's fairly consistently, equally applied, and that it doesn't discriminate against anybody because of their disability. So we're not asking, there's districts that have been sued for making statements about hair or, those sort of things. So we have that component. And as far as what we're saying kids have to wear, like I said last time, it's pretty basic. You have to wear a shirt, pants, or skirt, leggings, and shoes,
Shirt,
so.
no shoes, no service.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's still always, dress codes are so hard. I know it's a very emotional reaction that people have to it sometimes on both sides. Not that there's sides, but I think a key component that I like with this and that in general is just contacting parents, because I do think there's some kids that go out the door in one outfit, and we know that happens in middle and high school, and they end up in another one. I mean, I've heard of girls coming home with makeup on now that they didn't have when they left. So as long as we have open communication with families, I mean, I would personally want to know if that was my child, if there was some, and deal with it, so. And then it does kind of also say that it is really a parental decision in some ways, unless the child is making their own decisions. So, and there's no dress code, and I've struggled with this, that's gonna make everybody happy, I don't think. So I think this does a nice job of walking that line, and it's still, unfortunately, principals and administrators are still gonna have to decide if something is offensive. They're gonna have to decide if it's unsuitable for school, and there'll be a lot of opinions on that, but, going back to saying that girls' shorts have to be at least knee length, that doesn't even exist. You can't even find that in stores, so you can't do that either.
Everyone's
So.
gonna have to take home ec and make your own.
Exactly. So, thank you for the work on this.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
agreed.
Okay, so that's the second read, well, we're gonna vote on the second read, so we'll have one more chance to review again before it becomes a final policy. With that, I'm gonna put it to a vote. All those in favor for the second reading? Okay, 5-0. Very good. All right, so we're gonna jump to deliberations. I meant to mention this, and you talked about it a little bit, so I just want to, so we moved the board docs, we got our packet, it's one page. Can we put a request back in to have the full packet come out? Because I think none of us are prepared tonight, and I don't get the internet, I can't, because my work computer, I can't get onto it, so.
We can absolutely do that.
Okay.
And Gina's gonna do another training on board
Great.
docs. We do have to look at the internet in this room because, text messaging, and a lot of different things that
Oh, maybe that's what it is, yeah.
are critical, because each of us have families and kids and that, and we shouldn't be isolated. So we'll look at that as well. I still, because I keep the paper copy for historical records, so it's still gonna come to me. It's not a difficult thing to forward it. I think what we like about board docs is the breakdown of the different components, but still getting used to what that means for us too.
Yep, I figured it. That was the
Yeah,
first
just to
roll out. I
remember.
figured that's all it was, yeah.
I will say this, as soon as you said it was on board docs, I had it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I went to the website, I went to district, I clicked board docs, and there it was. So,
Did you get this is just a communications question, did you get an email saying it was posted?
We got an email on how to use it, and we
Yeah.
got an email with it's a one-page, front-page agenda.
yeah, I won't lie, I saw the how to use the email and I kept going.
I did too.
Because I've used board docs in the past, but nothing was flagged for me that everything for tonight was on here. So, but again, I found, the beauty of it is I found it super fast while we were doing this,
And I
so.
think, for the public, I don't know if for the public we're here tonight, but I think we're used to seeing an agenda that has the location on it. And so, if it looks like the agenda that was mailed to us, it just says that it's at 6 o'clock. Clearly, on the board docs, like on the page, the board docs landing page, it does say, look at the SAU calendar, but that's a lot of steps if you want to come to a meeting to know where to find it.
Yeah, because when I go to the July 26th agenda on board docs, that's all, it just says BSB agenda. There's
Yeah.
no time, no location. If we can somehow work that in, that would be fantastic.
We'll
Just
take care of that.
baby steps, we'll get there.
Yeah, and the co-op district also had some big people that like the old packet too, so we're gonna.
Bunch of dinosaurs asking for the old.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
No,
I like it too. I
can't get online
I like
there
the
either.
board doc personally, but.
All right,
And we'll
Okay.
improve on this.
thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Well, first week rollout, great.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so we also had discussed staffing in our deliberations as we added, so why don't we move there?
Yeah, I'd like to go to that. From Dan's presentation tonight, you will see that we have a concern. The 73 students at kindergarten is up significantly. NASDAQ had projected 58. Last year, we only had 54. It's a huge amount. Now, we looked at a variety of things. We did look at moving a first grade teacher down, which would lower the sections of kindergarten, but would give us numbers 19 to 20. I don't think either of those options is really what we would like, based on what we're talking about for SEL, based on still coming out of COVID and making up educational pieces. What I'd like to recommend is that we authorize the hiring of another teacher, okay? And let me explain to you why I kind of feel comfortable from a budget standpoint doing that. First of all, if we, just our regular budget, I would recommend that we hire a teacher and that I look to find the money in the operating budget. And we would just follow that like we've done in the past from month to month, and I would give you updates. We also have the retained fund balance that will come out in August. We don't know what that is, but it'll probably be somewhere between 100 and 140,000 that we can utilize to acquire a teacher. The last piece is the memo I handed out to you. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on the memo, but I thought it was really well done by the Department of Ed. Those of you who follow the budget might realize that they changed the funding formula. So the funding formula is going to result in more revenue coming to districts across the state of New Hampshire. In the memo, they tell us they don't have the exact number yet, and they won't have it until mid to late August. But there are a variety of factors. They increased just adequacy in general, and then there was funding for students who were struggling to read. There was a whole host of categories that got looked at. I believe this funding is going to come in and is going to be in our favor. And I would recommend, as it's described in the memo, that the board at their August meeting consider how we'd like to go about utilizing this money. We simply don't have the ability to spend the money because it's unanticipated revenue. And the voters approved our budget. There is a process for that to be approved, which would probably result in a special meeting, which we would have to have sometime early in the school year.
Yep.
And let the voters know how much money is coming in. We'd work with legal just like we do during the budget season to write the warrant article. It would be town meeting style. It wouldn't be ballot. It would be, so we'd be in the gym, we'd do a presentation, explain to the voters and ask them to approve it. If the voters don't approve it, what happens, it just funnels down and offsets the tax rate, okay? My feeling is that when we go to the voters, especially talking about teachers, they have always been very, very supportive. So I see that coming in, and I wouldn't necessarily utilize the funds to just spend on a variety of things. It would be targeted pieces. I would tell the voters that we would need board permission to spend other than the funds, so that the majority of it, or the vast amount, could drop down and ultimately reduce the tax rate, which I think the voters would appreciate. So it's kind of sharing the windfall. I feel comfortable that we can work through this hiring process and get ourselves either a kindergarten or first grade teacher. I don't know what Dan will choose to advertise for. And we'll be opening up the registration process very soon. So one of those will be TBD, to be determined. We'll get the posting up. But I think it's the right thing A number of years back, when we put in the class size policy, it was something that was overwhelmingly supported by families. So I think they want those class sizes. And I think from an educational standpoint, with everything we're trying to do both academically and social emotionally, the smaller we can keep those classes, the better off our students will be. So I am recommending, with, I know Dan's support, and I've talked to Kelly, so she's aware of it too, that the board through vote approved the hiring of an additional teacher, and then I'll do what I typically do throughout the year during the budget process, keep you updated on how that funding is going, because right now, and we're gonna discuss the budget in a minute, but right now, we're still finishing FY '23 before jumping into FY '24.
So I have a couple questions, if you don't mind. So today for class size policy, and to your point, Andy, I remember a couple years ago, there was rumor that might go away, and again, overwhelming feedback there. So that I agree that around the town. So, but my question is, first grade, we have 5 teachers right now, I believe. No? I thought we had 5.
I'll go through the.
We have 5 class spaces, but not 5 teachers then?
This past year, we had 4 kindergarten classes.
Okay.
We had 5 first grade, 5 second, and 4 third. This coming year, with the large kindergarten class, I would need another section of kindergarten.
Right, you need 5.
I would need 5.
And 4 would be at first grade then? I'm just a year behind then, okay.
Which I
Got
would
it.
need to find a teacher somewhere. So looking at the numbers, if I pull, because that smaller class size isn't first grade going to first grade, I've got 4 teachers. Do I pull from there to make that 5th section of kindergarten, but now I'm left with
Then
3
you
in
get
first
3,
grade.
okay.
Whereas
Got it.
second, third, need to stay at 5 and 5.
Yep,
But the problem with that is I'm left with large classes in first grade with 20.
Yep.
So the policy was recommended for IIB was 17 in a
Right.
class or K in 1. Then we looked at going up to 20 kids in a class, recommended for grades 2 and 3.
Yep.
And then CSD has 23 students, 4 through 6. So,
okay, that makes sense.
yeah, all
It's
of our
just- it's
classes
just-
are in good range except for,
I just said we had 5 in each section, I forgot fourth, it was only 4 for kindergarten, so that
yeah,
makes
but
sense.
it just changes.
Yeah.
And that was at 54 last year.
Right,
That's now in the first grade, so those are nice sections
Yeah.
for teachers.
And this past week, we got 6 new first graders.
okay.
Last week and this week, 6 new first graders.
Right, and that's the other piece, just with the amount of housing that's still for sale in the community.
Yeah.
I think this provides us a little bit of buffer.
And the other question, so I'm just curious about the NESDEC comment that we made at the very beginning. So NESDEC, what was the NESDEC projection for were we way off on this year?
We're off because in kindergarten, and this is the one that's always the most difficult, NESDEC relies on building permits
Yeah.
and birth rate. We don't tend to be a community where people are necessarily buying their home first and then raising their children in the community for the
Yeah.
birth rate. We have more people moving in.
Okay.
So it's very difficult for us to capture that. And we also have a lot of move-ins where people will be moving in for the middle and high school specifically. So the youngest might be first grader, second grader. So we see a lot of that. So the younger grades, K and 1, are the most concerning to me because I think once you've been in the community for a few years, the numbers don't fluctuate significantly. You might get 1 or 2 move-ins, 1 or 2 move-outs, and most of those are job-related.
Yeah. So, and we've seen the increase certainly as we're sitting in one of the reasons. What was the NESDEC projection for this year? I'm just curious.
I have them right here.
Yeah,
So,
They thought-
what was it for 58 versus,
58.
and we're in
73.
73,
but I was
okay,
trying to
thank
tell
you.
So, I have
Wow.
it pulled up right here.
So that's way off of this year, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when I look at 54 last year, knowing there was going to be growth, maybe, maybe that's what they were using, slight growth.
And this year, we started the registration
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
Just to, because that was a low number. We also look at all the birth rates, we look at all the preschool registrations, so there's a lot of different things we look at, It was hovering around that, but since January, we've climbed.
Wow, okay. So that's really helpful to just understand a little in the background. Thank you.
So is that 60 for first grade, include the 6 in the last week?
Yes.
Should.
Oh, it
Yeah,
does,
should. I was
okay.
gonna say it's 54.
As of with the board reports due
Yeah,
Thursday, we
23
had-
times 20.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the same thing's happening in Hollis.
I know, I'm trying to
Yeah.
get, so
And
this is
that's
60
grades
total.
K to 3. We're not necessarily seeing an explosion of 4 to 6. A lot of young families.
I just
and
took
the difference
notes.
that I'm seeing is their oldest is entering kindergarten and first grade, not their youngest. And they have, they're pushing strollers and coming to visit us at the SAU, you know, bunch of children. We're not selling one or two bedroom houses, these
Yeah.
are 3 and 4 bedrooms.
Yeah, well, and I've heard that, like, anecdotally, like on NPR or whatever, they were talking about, like, with the way that the mortgage rates and stuff, that people are like, it's more affordable to build new houses and buy new construction than it is to buy existing, inventory, so. All those apple orchards.
I have a question.
I guess my one other, and then do you have a question too?
Yeah, I just,
Can I-
but I
do you mind
think we
if-
all know. Go ahead, yeah.
All right, my one last thing is, I would just advocate that we don't use the retained fund balance, because this is like a long-term thing in my mind, where a teacher comes on, they're gonna be with them. That's just my opinion, and we build that in, we use it, like you said, for the adequacy this year, that's what the intent is, to help, and then we budget for it in the future, but that's just my 2
We would
cents.
definitely, this would be
Yeah.
in the FY '25.
Right. Colleen, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, just based on, it was probably something I misheard, but this year we had 4 kindergarten classrooms and 5 first grade classrooms, correct?
Yeah, and those 5 first grade classrooms are going up to 2nd grade.
Okay, so, we need, to me though, I'm just trying to figure out, we need 5 kindergarten classrooms because of the income, and we need 4 first grade classrooms. But that's the same number, 9 and
basically-
9. No, somebody, I just want to make
So
sure I could explain
basically,
that.
I needed to take a teacher.
Yeah,
I took, and this is just on paper, say I took a teacher from first grade, that brought it from 4 to 3,
okay.
put it in kindergarten to make 5 sections.
Oh, you,
But now I'm
oh,
sh-
okay.
Now I'm short a teacher in first grade because of the,
Okay, I gotcha.
I did
So-
the same mistake.
So really-
Yeah, I
By
was
doing
like,
that,
wait,
you
I need
have-
to know in
I
case
could leave
somebody
the first grade
asks.
teacher back in first and hire for, like a new kindergarten teacher, that's what
Yeah.
I would most likely do.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
And I-
Because what
go
you've
ahead.
done,
Kindergarten
sorry,
last year only had 4,
because what you've done right now makes first grade class sizes at 20.
20,
Right.
for
And-
3 teachers. Yeah,
Right,
Yeah.
okay, so that's what I'm seeing here. Just,
Yeah.
I think we're,
Yeah, we're just trying to work out the
Well, I-
numbers. I didn't
you
see
ran
that.
through these numbers, and she and I were trying to write them down because I didn't realize
And
where they
that's
were,
fine.
and now
Yeah,
that I
and
And I could have left
have
it
them,
where
we're good.
our current staffing, and what it would have looked like is 4 teachers at first grade with 14 and a half kids, 4 teachers at kindergarten with 19.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
but
It's
that
just a
was-
matter of, yeah.
And I apologize, and this is me just being a little bit new, but I know the class size cap, do we have
We have a recommended policy.
we have a recommended policy?
Yeah,
That-
so our
okay.
board, that's why I was saying the kindergarten and first grade were 17, that was the recommended size. And the 2nd, 3rd grade was 20, and then
Okay.
23 for grades 4 through 6. So all of our other classes are right within those ranges, you know, we're hovering.
You're hovering.
They're hovering.
It's not a requirement ever to act, but it's a, we need to, they bring it forward and we talk about it like
Yep.
we're doing, and then, I guess I'm gonna do it right now, I'm gonna put a motion to authorize the hiring of a kindergarten teacher, and someone's,
Just-
Or
or just
Dr.
switch off.
Harvey,
I can second that.
K-1 teacher, or like just an additional teacher.
An additional
I would,
teacher for
I would
RMS.
mostly
You would
put a
prefer
K,
it-
but you can, however you
yeah.
wanna do it,
I
K1
was
teacher,
thinking-
yeah.
I'm hearing K, but,
An
okay,
additional
we'll hire,
elementary.
an additional, I'll withdraw that, authorize the hiring of an additional elementary teacher, education teacher.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now we can keep talking about it and we can vote if you're ready.
I think this is just absolutely crucial that we do this, and I think the voters will support it. K and 1 are such important grades for academics, behaviors, social, emotional, all the things we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And getting up in numbers like 20 with kids pouring in is just not why a lot of people are here.
And I will say,
Yeah.
just on that point, our last year's kindergarten class, which is first grade, we had 15 kids in the class, and our teachers saw such great growth.
Yeah.
With those low class sizes.
Absolutely.
You have the physical space, I'm assuming?
Yes.
To accommodate?
Yeah.
We built out for 5 in every grade.
Did they? Okay.
So we will be built out now. Right, I think, right?
Well,
One-
we will be-
okay.
we have enough space, but
Okay,
we will be
okay.
4 in first grade.
All right.
4 in first
And
grade.
we
Okay.
have, just so the board's aware, we have 3 experts who are supporting this.
All right.
Of course, like, you don't need to, it's a no-brainer. As far as I'm concerned, like,
Yeah.
we know that a lot of families move here for our schools. We know how important
I'll
class
tell you,
sizes
I've
are.
never
It's a-
seen
It's a,
it more unified than when they heard the class size policy might go away. I've never seen a more unified response,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right, so we need to put it to a vote. Let's put it to a vote.
Do we,
Go
oh, sorry,
ahead.
do
Go
we
ahead.
need to talk about how we're funding it, or can we just?
No.
No, we don't,
What's
okay.
gonna happen is I'm gonna start with the operating budget, If we do get the state funding increase, we'll take it out of there.
Okay,
And then if for some reason 3 other things come up, we might have to go to the retained fund.
okay. I just wanna make sure, cause
Yep.
this is,
It becomes pretty much like last year, Tracy, almost a year-long discussion about the budget.
yeah, no, I know, it's, we're
Is it-
going to have
it's
lots
time
of
again.
discussions. I know,
I
we're
mean,
going to have lots of discussions, cause I think there's a lot of things that are going to be coming up. And I think enrollment, I think moving into the school district, I think families, I think houses, I think it's going to impact us a lot. And I know that might not be like immediately in our mission or our mandate, but I think that's going to impact us a lot. And I think we're going to have to think about that and talk about that a lot.
Agreed.
All those in favor? All right. Authorized to hire another one. Great.
Go find them.
Yep, go find them, that's right.
If you're watching this, you're a certified K-1 teacher, contact Dan Mulner.
So in August, we're gonna hear about that person?
Interview start after this meeting.
How,
In the parking lot.
how late into like, I mean, it's the end of July, like, what
You know,
what
we've
is that
been really
pool
fortunate the
gonna
last
look
few years
like?
because we've been dealing with a lot
Okay.
hiring. I'm certain we'll find someone qualified and excellent.
It's a very attractive position.
Yeah.
People really like the younger grades.
The smaller classes.
Okay,
Especially when you say the
Yeah.
classroom, like if I put kindergarten, it's a very
Yeah.
exciting
John?
job to go.
Do you have a K teacher that would be willing to go back to first, or go up to first?
I do, but our teams are really cohesive and unified right now, so I'd like to keep the first grade team the way it is.
Yep.
I had the new kindergarten teacher, just 'cause that's the section.
Is that our
As you can
first
see,
grade
they-
team?
Is that a first grade team over there?
Yeah.
It's
And they're amazing.
great. Okay, so in August, we'll hear about our new hire. All right.
the day before school.
Listen to the hedging. All right, so we talking about elections for August, just as a reminder, everyone. So the next one was, Tracy, you talked about select board discussions. Would you mind briefing us on what your intent was there?
Sure. So I have not listened to all of the, meetings of the select board, but I think per the discussions and some of the emails that we may have seen, there have been some discussions at the select board around elections at CSDA. I don't know if we're, I'm hoping this is like a public discussion, but around the storage of election equipment at CSDA. I think maybe Andy, you were talking about this. But I do think that it's really vital and critical that we as a school board, and as an SAU, maybe potentially, I don't know how this might work, but that we have a really great working relationship with the town of Brookline. And I think from the town of Brookline, I think, they would also probably want a really great relationship with us as well as kind of two entities working within the town. And so I just wonder if there are ways to move the conversation forward or ways to talk about, what we're thinking of doing in terms of upcoming elections, in terms of dates, if we would like to have school open, if it's our recommendation to have school open or closed, the equipment, the locations. I think there's, a lot of things to think about in that regard. And I don't know, I think there's probably been a lot of forward movement maybe on both of those things, but, just in terms of also just when we're thinking about budgets, when we're thinking about capital improvements and how we work within the context of the town, we're kind of like mom and dad, right? Like maybe we're mom and maybe like the select board is dad, right? And we kind of have to work together. And I think, we kind of have to have really great communication between the two entities. That's my truth.
Yeah. First of all, we communicate regularly, and have been since I've been here. I think the election piece, it's a new stance by a new board, where we're uncomfortable having elections in the school or kids in the school. I asked Ken to put that on the agenda next month, because I think we're gonna be closer to kind of having a date for the primary, which now looks like might be early January, so we might have to look at the calendar. The problem that we face as an SAU is Hollis has no elections in the schools. And if it's a small town election, the Hollis town uses the Lawrence Barn. If it's a large election, they use the small gym, which is basically isolated from students. So it's a much easier mechanism to have adults in the building when students are in the building and they're different age students. We are not opposed to having elections at the school, but we have heard loud and clear of the discomfort the board has with those adults and students mingling. And it's not easy just to have police presence, because people come in and they talk and they do that, and it's just a natural. And we can't isolate CSDA, because students have to go past the gym to get to the cafeteria. So we may need to look at closing the schools on voting days, but understand our bus contract is based on running all the kids K to 12. And that would incur potential cost to only run a bus, say, if we went an extra day in Brookline at the end of the year. So it's not this easy little piece. What we asked the town for recently, that some of the emails have been about, is to take the election items, all the pieces, and store them at the town. We have told the town that our custodians will transport them to the town, and our custodians will be happy to pick them up and bring them. We just don't have enough storage anymore for the students that we're trying to deal with day in and day out. The other piece that was in the email was our discussions about using DECO. And for those of you who weren't aware, there was a series of emails just if we were concerned about elections and kids being in school, we were also concerned about DECO and kids commingling with people that hadn't been background checked by us. Chief Quigley weighed in because we're still working on that to get more clarification from DECO, but at the same time, that's a, probably very, very rare, critical issue where we have no choice. We're going someplace. DECO just happens to be the closest point, and because of the type of incident, you would have police responding from Brookline, from Hollis, from Townsend, and all the others that are in the group. And we're only at the company until the buses get there. And then we take all the kids from there to the safety complex, and then the safety complex is where we do unification. So, we have a number of different things that are going on because we continue to grow and safety plans continue to evolve. I looked at this space because it's isolated, but I don't think it's big enough for an election. It's not.
It's the same.
Right.
To be honest, it's the same size as the Lawrence Barn.
I agree.
And you have like a door coming in and you have a door going out.
Right. So I will continue to.
I think our preference is that the town of Brookline would come up with a location that is in one of the town's municipal buildings. And that way we could run the buses, kids could have their schedules unimpacted.
But to Tracy's point, change is difficult. And it appears that we're just taking a stance, and we haven't taken any stance. We're going to have a discussion next month, and I will reach out to the town administrator again and seek input.
I, again, had expressed to Trish and Dan that it was my intention as a private citizen to email them and send them a copy of the April school board minutes where we talked about, it's like the last page of the minutes when we were deliberating on the calendar, where the conversation came up about, elections in the schools and the board's desire, or the board's conversation about having them not be in the schools. Again, haven't gotten to that. But, I would, love for the select board to go to our website and read those minutes and see that we did have a thoughtful discussion, and that I do understand, from what I saw of the select board meeting last week, that select board member Dennehy, did say that when CSDA was built, the intention was to have the, town's elections there, and when the CSDA was built, there weren't school shootings every day in America. So, it's just respectfully a different time. And I also would like to just mention that Chief Quigley's response to the constituent about DECO is that his understanding is that our students are congregating in the parking lot and not occupying a space. And so I think that needs to be clarified, because I think that's what our concerns were at the last school board meeting, is that students were going to be in a large warehouse, being sheltered from the storm or whatever. So I think.
And I think that's the piece we're still working with them, because if it was a beautiful day like today, we could line them up in the parking lot outside. Please understand that all administrators, all teachers are going with them. Obviously, in our protocols, once this has been activated, the SAU is coming over. So we're going to have as many hands together as we can. If it's an awful rainy day, we've looked at the inside site. We are working with language, but we're facing some vacation days for attorneys and things, and we think we'll have that in place. But I just wanted to let the community know that it's not our intentions not to have elections until the board makes a final decision. It's trying to figure out how do we keep students, staff as safe as possible on a day that can become very chaotic. Now, looking at a primary day, what we've done in the past, if they set a day and we had already had a professional development day scheduled in January, we might flip-flop the dates because that accommodates everybody. But it's just one of those things we have to look at for a long-term solution. There's regular communication between the town entities, because one of the other things you brought up, Tracy, is the CIP. We submit all our capital improvements to the town.
No, I know, I was on that committee last year, and so I'm intimately familiar with the capital improvement plan. And we had discussed making that a fall and a spring capital improvement review and plan. And I just think that it's really important for both of these really important entities in our town to be aligned, for the citizens of the town to support both things, to support the town and to support our schools. We are a school town. That is what drives people here. We just talked about 73 students, that is our economic driver to this town. And if we do not, have people supporting our schools, then I would be fearful of what would happen. And so, I think we need to just really make sure that in all of our thinking and in all of our budget preparations, in all of our capital improvement preparations, in all of our thoughts, that we, have really great forethought of, what is going to be happening in the next 2, 3, 4 years. There are developments happening. There are, possibly housing developments happening. There are lots of things going on that could severely impact the school, the facilities, that I think we as a board and we as an SAU and a district need to be intimately aware of. And so these types of conversations, I think, are super important to not really, discuss at the end of July, but really over the years.
Tracy,
So
I guess I'm struck. What are you advocating for? Because I think we're in violent agreement on that. So what do you think is missing right now? That's what I'm struggling with.
I think there's a tension between, there's kind of there's parallel paths of the two biggest entities in our town. I think, I'm sure Andy and the SAU work well with the town, but for some reason, sometimes I think can be just like a gulf or a divide, or not a miscommunication, but just maybe like people working in parallel paths. I mean, we didn't really get a lot of the right, or we run on a calendar year, right? Or we run on an academic year. They don't. We do things differently. We're two different entities, right? We're two political entities that don't necessarily have to work together. We're not supposed to work together, right? The municipality is not supposed to influence us in any way, right? We don't want the select board telling us what to teach the kids, right? And so, but yet we need the town and we need the taxpayers to vote for things that we need. And so we need to make sure our facilities get in the capital improvement plan. We need to make sure like all of our budget stuff is supported by the select board. We don't need Selectman Denny to, say things about CSDA and things like that. So,
But I just want you to know, it's no different in Hollis than it is in Brookline.
I'm sure it's no different throughout New Hampshire.
Right.
It's the nature of the beast probably, but that doesn't mean that it has to be that way here.
Where is our tension? I guess I'm still struggling. And I'm not trying to be a pain, but where is the tension? What is driving this all of a sudden?
There is tension where it comes from. There is a tension where the schools, I believe, are seen in a way that I don't, the town, when you look at, okay, so I'm on the master plan committee, right? And one of the biggest things in the last master plan was that school taxes were too high, right? And you hear that all the time, right? But nowhere in the master plan is anything about the schools, because we are a totally separate entity. So everybody in town feels like, the school taxes are too high, right? And we hear that like all the time. But we need the town and all of the taxpayers to support the school, and we need the select board to support the school, and we need to be in the capital improvement plan. But yet we're two separate political entities. Maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. But
Yeah, because we have our own CIP. That's
Right.
what we do, and we review that every year as part of the budget cycle. We will. We put our own warrants forward, independent of the select board. Whether they agree with them or not, that's fine, but the legislative body ultimately approves those, just like they do the select board. So I don't think I just haven't seen a case where we've been really disunified, aside from the election. The election thing, I think we need to brainstorm on. I think it's been talked about in the past, and I think based on our conversation, we're very aligned on that. I'm not seeing the other tension, and I'm trying to understand it. I really genuinely am. I'm not following.
I guess I just see it as, if we don't have the support of our town.
But our town does vote, right? That's the legislative body, so they vote every year in
Right,
collaborative.
and it's been difficult, like, we have a flat budget. It's really hard to get a budget.
We don't, yeah, we haven't had a flat budget, but.
Well, I
but
mean,
I hear we have a.
if we had
budget
gotten the one of the fire panels 2 years ago when it was put in the budget, it would have been like $40,000, and now it's like $60-something thousand.
Yep, I don't disagree with you on that. There's some
Right.
just budget line, that's typical budgeting process, yeah. But we haven't, just for record, we haven't had a 0% budget, and as long as I've been doing this, we've always gone up some percentage.
I just think that we need the support of those on the select board and those that watch what goes on.
Is this stemming from that, is that stemming from that email we got, or is there something else that
Yeah.
we're not aware of that's driving,
that's what
that's
I'm-
driving this? Because I hear the passion there, I'm with Ken, I'm struggling a little bit too, so was it the email that was driven? Is there something else that we're not aware of, that we need to be aware of?
I guess I just feel like as like two of the biggest entities, we can table it and move on.
Okay.
No, I'm not,
I mean, and so,
But I
you-
think
not trying to-
you're accurate. I'm not trying to say that there isn't a push-pull, because with both, and actually for Brookline and Hollis, it's actually 3 entities because of the co-op. So, the town is trying to fund what they're trying to fund, and I respect that. The Brookline School Board is trying to put forth what they need for the kids K to 6, and the co-op board is trying to put forth what they need 7 through 12. And I'm the lens that has to kind of bring that in. So there are many years where we have cut things that we needed, but looking at the overall impact to the town, the dollars will only go so far. I mean, we just approved a great Brookline teacher contract, and now this year, upcoming, is a co-op teacher's contract. That is going to hit Brookline residents as well. And the same with the Hollis. So I think, I'm more than willing to try to do anything to communicate better. But I think some of this will always exist no matter what we try to do. Because again, there's only one pool of money, and there are 3 entities that are trying to utilize it.
but that's why we have the finance committee with our lens too, right? I thought that was really the primary point, was to come back with select board and with school board and help us identify where we're gonna have significant impacts too, right? Okay.
Well, and I think the other thing is, I would say that when you look at both the town and the schools, the communities have been very, very supportive.
Yep.
Whether it's the co-op Brookline or even the town of Brookline. I think that the voters have done everything they can to stick with the identity that they want as a community. But it's only gonna get more difficult until they figure out state funding.
So you mentioned CIP liaison too, which I am intrigued with, because I know when we were, Colleen, when we were on that committee, that was something we had talked about too. I think so can you say more on that, Tracy? Because I think that has
Sure.
a lot of opportunity, and I definitely would be supportive of that.
Yeah, sure. So the town does the capital improvement plan, and they were thinking of doing updates twice a year. So not only getting it done for the spring, but also in the fall. They have all of the town departments, and they include the schools. So, if there's an opportunity for a liaison and someone wants to be involved in that, I think that might be a really nice, maybe a really nice connection. Yeah.
So that happen, they do that twice a year right now, or no? Or
Not currently, but
okay.
there was talk about it.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think just going through the committee we went through.
Yeah.
There was a clear gap there in my mind, where some of the we had our CIP, the town had their CIP, but, so I think that's something I would definitely support with what you're saying, Tracy.
Yeah, agreed.
And I'd be willing to be the liaison if we want to have a liaison, because I've done some of this, and I think you all are on more committees than I am at this point, so. You all had we wanted to keep it all together, but that's, I was on negotiating before last year, but this year there isn't, so. And I do have some background with
Yeah.
the planning board, not the select board, but
Sure.
but they were part of it too.
Yeah, they were part of it ultimately, yeah.
And I agree. I think what I'm taking from this is that we all need to be communicating. We're never all going to be on the same page. That's not our job to get us all on the same page, but that there are sometimes major things that are happening that we may not be aware of and that impact us greatly.
Yeah, so I guess I'm just concerned about the lawsuit that the town is in.
Okay.
And how that may impact, our schools and, what that is going to, potentially do. And I think if we, have more of a hand-in-glove relationship with the town, then, what is going to happen with that, it will set us up as a school district for a better outcome.
So so that it's around development plan and build up, because that makes a lot of sense to me. If that's where
Yeah.
you're going with it, I
That's more
totally,
Yeah.
I was getting
Yeah.
thrown off by other stuff, but if that's where you're going with it on the development,
That-
and
that I
I
agree with.
definitely agree with
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of that as planning board, that's
Yeah,
why I was
yeah,
confused too.
yeah.
Yeah, so like the lawsuit that the town is in, like that is like definitely a major concern of mine. That's why I was
Okay.
like, yeah, sometimes it's just, I don't want to say anything in a public like
we don't.
having some of these meetings where we're in a public discussion, like they say, we talk about these, public things, so just want to make sure we're like all talking about the same thing, so.
Yeah. Okay, great. Was there anything, so I've written a couple things down. Did we cover everything that you wanted to review?
Yeah.
How about the budget piece that you had noted?
No, I think I should end on high note.
Well, I can run through the budget though, 'cause I think it's important, just because I think it's really important.
I probably should go out on lawsuit.
No.
End on lawsuit.
No, you were asking, I think it's important to know. We're in the process of actually closing FY '23. So we have 4 audits coming up, SAU, Brookline, Hollis, and Tacoma. That's taking place in the next probably 30 days. The treasurers, Chad jumping in, and that have already completed their work, so we're now ready for the audit. We are still not even sure of what adequacy looks like for FY '24, so we'll have more information on that in August and decide how we'd like to proceed there. The building principals have already submitted their first draft, which they're told to ask for everything in the kitchen sink. And that goes to Kelly and Gina because they look at it through the lens of finances and the lens of curriculum and staffing. I get round 2, and that's when we actually start making cuts. From a budget standpoint, you as a school board will start to go through the entire process, and you'll be able to see what's been cut round by round. And like this addition of this teacher tonight will be obviously the priority area and remain in the budget next year because the numbers aren't going to go down. The August through, I'd say, October, we really focus a lot in discussing those budgets. In October, the first thing we have to do is complete the SAU budget, because that actually goes for public hearing in December, and we need that number so that we can apportion it to the 3 district budgets. And then we get into the process of the meetings with the finance committee and public hearings, deliberative session, and then the March vote. This is probably the most difficult time of the year because we're closing one budget, starting another, and actually talking about FY '25. So there's just an awful lot of numbers going across Kelly's desk at this point. And I do want to thank Dan and Trish for getting round 1 in. And I will say what I always say to them, I don't think they missed a thing. I don't think they missed a thing. And I would love just to put them all forward, but that would never fly. And they know that. But the thing is, what we do, we keep a historical record, and if something's, second or third time, that moves up on our priority list to get that funded.
Can I ask just a logistics question, as you go through this process? How much of that work is done when the board starts to get involved? Is that all done in our monthly meetings? Are there separate budget committee meetings that,
No, we
Since
have
I'm
a
on-
significant time at the board meeting.
at the board meetings?
So
Okay.
starting in August, we'll start talking a lot about this.
We go
It's gonna be all
from-
budget.
since I'm on the budget committee, I'm just trying to figure out like how much extra, if I need to carve out any extra time, which I have no problems with. It's just a whole, I'm a planner.
Well, you're on the.
Budget
the
committee.
Budget committee?
Now I'm on this, I don't
Okay,
know.
this one.
I'm on
I'm not sure which
both.
one's
You're on
fine.
both. I'm on both apparently.
Okay, good.
Just want to make sure I'm where I need to be, when I need to be,
No,
wherever.
We really make the budget a priority, and carve out significant minutes, and then eventually it's gonna go from the draft budget to what is the superintendent's budget, and then formally becomes the school board's budget. And as always, we are governed by the 8% tax cap that we have, so there can be a budget, a default budget, and a tax cap budget.
Right.
So there may be 3 budgets.
Okay.
Okay? So that covers the budget process.
And
Okay.
I will get communications for if I need to be anywhere extra. You're shaking your head, yes. Just make
What do I
it,
get?
Say you will.
It's a good question.
This one, you really will
It's-
do most of it through.
okay.
board meeting.
Yeah,
And,
we'll do
and
that.
just, every district works differently.
Yep.
And this is gonna work differently than what I've been through in the past. So I just wanna make sure that I don't miss a step.
We'll use most meetings as budget workshops so the public can hear everything we're talking about,
Okay.
everything that they want to bring through, and, yeah.
It's kind of what I gathered from like the
Yeah.
end of last year when I started attending some meetings, just kind of hearing like the leftover budget talk.
Sure.
But I just like clarifying questions.
Great.
Thank you for humoring me, appreciate it.
Okay, we have a non-public on the agenda.
We don't need one.
Okay, beautiful.
We'll always put one on the agenda
Yeah.
in case.
Okay, well, with that then, I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:42.
I will second that amendment.
Okay.
that motion.
All those in favor? 5-0, very good.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.